I'm your host, Cerise Hall, and you are watching Business Speaks. Business Speaks audience and listeners, it's 6 o'clock. Everybody should have their Business Speaks binder ready to take great notes and get an education on a business topic for this evening. We have a great, diversified show for you tonight. Once again, we always want to state that Business Speaks mission is to highlight and reveal local businesses that impact marketplace ministries. We use spiritual principles that impact perpetual wealth. Tonight we have a very diverse topic, but we always want to thank our sponsors. Tonight our sponsor is Divine Order Restoration Ministries. We've had Pastor Ronche Dorn here before. She is sponsoring our show tonight, and I have some great information to tell you later on in the show. But as always, we want to invite the Holy Spirit into our place. So let's take a time of meditation and always be grateful for the time that we have to share together. Holy Spirit, we thank you for the opportunity to interview and to have an influence. We want to impact families and our faith-based community for marketplace ministry. We want to always empower and call to action dreamers, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We thank you for this opportunity. Family, we are privileged to have Emily McMillan with us tonight. She is the CEO of McMillan and Associates Consulting. Emily, long time no see. How are you?
I'm doing great, Cerise. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah. Oh, we're in for a lot of great information. Family, tonight I was so glad that she challenged me on this particular topic, that our young people, especially getting out of college and graduating from high school, within our faith-based community where there's plenty of small business owners. She says, Cerise, I'm challenging Business Speaks tonight to talk about volunteering, humanitarian efforts, and networking. And I am really, really excited to dig into the networking part. After the recent death of Prince, we all have found out nationally and globally that he was a great humanitarian who gave to causes that was passionate to him. And I think he left us a great legacy in the faith-based community as we carry each other's burdens, care for widows, care for orphans, and we to love others as we love ourselves. So before we dig in, Emily, kind of tell our Business Speaks audience a little bit about your background.
Very good. Thank you again, Cerise, for having me
Sure.
today. And I am Emily McMillan of McMillan and Associates Consulting. We created our firm in 2010, and the purpose of our organization was to reach out to the community, to the business community initially, to improve business performance, increase profit. We were also reaching out to the nonprofit organizations to support their efforts and to meet their operational goals. We also want to encourage and inspire youth and young adults to achieve their education and career goals, which led me to the volunteering and networking opportunities that were available that lead you to not only successful professional outcome, but also engagement in your community.
Absolutely. Kind of tell our listeners what you kind of been doing here lately.
Okay. Most recently, I completed a 3-year project under the Healthy Marriage and Family Initiative under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The program primarily targeted approximately 1,500 youth within that period within 7 of the metro counties. It was an excellent program where I was tasked to teach career and job skills, volunteering and networking, letting them know just how critically important that supports their outlook on the future as far as jobs and technology is concerned. During this effort, we reached out to more than 1,500 youth and young adults in the program. It is in the 6 metro counties, which were Gwinnett, Fulton County, Rockdale. Gwinnett, Fulton, Rockdale, and DeKalb counties, we found that 90% of the high school students that we were engaged with were at risk. And I guess, in my opinion, when I look at youth of today, they're all at risk given the many challenges that they face. I give credit to the students or the youth that were involved in the program because uh, they too taught me a lot of things. Cerise, they taught me a lot of things.
Sure.
And as a matter of fact, one of them received the Gates Millennium Scholarship,
Oh, really?
and she gave me and the program credit for what she learned in our program, and I thought that
So
was
let's
outstanding.
let's briefly. I don't know if you. I know a couple of Gates recipients. Kind of just briefly. Do you know the history of that and kind of briefly what that is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you kind of tell the audience what that briefly is?
Sure, sure. The Millennium Gates Scholarship is a scholarship that's sponsored and offered by Bill Gates, who, of course, is the founder of Microsoft. And with the Gates Millennium Scholarship, recipients have a full ride to the college of their choice. And this includes books, room and board, uh, transportation, anything that's affiliated with their college program. It is just a phenomenal scholarship and definitely an honor to receive that particular scholarship. Not all students who, of course, apply for the Gates
Sure.
Millennium, it is a rarity that, if you're selected for this particular scholarship, but the young lady that did receive it, she attended a Georgia college.
Okay.
She had many offers, but she decided to attend Kennesaw State University.
Which is a great school. And one added note to that, the reason why I wanted her to kind of explain is I have one of my mentees who is going to Morehouse College right now, between Morehouse and Emory, who was a Bill Gates Scholar recipient. They take your college matriculation all the way up into a PhD.
Absolutely.
To a PhD, and the funding, I think the amount, you have to go through a lot of classes. His award overall was $550,000.
Yes.
So to be a recipient, your mentee, to be a recipient of this is huge, mom and dad, because they get a stipend. My particular mentee gets about $5,000 or $6,000 every semester. They want them to totally focus on school and the college experience.
Absolutely.
So that for her to get that and to choose a Georgia college, that's outstanding, and outstanding to you to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
So this thing about volunteering and networking, as you incorporate that, and like you said in the beginning, that part of McMillan and Associates consulting, the consulting piece, is to help businesses be profitable, P&L, profit and loss, so they have that. Do you think that volunteering and the social awareness part should be part of a person's business plan?
Absolutely, Cerise. And I will indicate here only if it's from the heart.
Key.
And I think that's very critical because when in dealing with other businesses, you can easily recognize when it's not from the heart, when there's no sincerity. What networking and volunteering does, it broadens your horizon as an individual. It also expands your territory as a business, and it also links you with like minds, like goals, and future anticipated goals that both may have that could create a unified front for the community.
I think in our world, and I don't know about you, but I'll speak for myself. I would consider a baby boomer, and then we think about our young people, millennials, who are so creative when it comes to job creation, business creation, and opportunities. I think a point that we need to tell our families, and once again, let me always say, family is not necessarily mother, father. It could be big mama, auntie, sister, older brother taking care of younger kids, family friend taking older kids, because I don't want you to just think that we're excluding anybody. It's inclusive when we say the word family. Is that when you're in high school and definitely in college, and let me make a side point, that's how me and Emily met, through volunteering through Atlanta Public Schools. You should have an experience in volunteering, which, like she says, open the door to various business partners, business leaders, etc., etc. And definitely when you get to the college level, people now are looking on resumes for how your footprint is being left in your community. Because you can have a degree, but if you don't have any practical skills, which volunteering will give you that, for whatever, it's a volunteering opportunity in everything from education to going over in Egypt, going on a dig to find some type of artifact. It should be part of your DNA and part of your upbringing through your family time to do volunteering. I know a lot of our churches, we have GED programs, food banks, clothing banks. All that are representations of what Christ has asked us to do, to carry each other's burdens. And now, we had a guest before, Mr. Mosley was talking about every day is 10,000 people retiring from baby boomers turning 65. I'm sorry, if you would. There's a lot of opportunity for business.
Absolutely.
A lot of opportunity in business through volunteering, and where you can get your volunteering and some business expertise is through volunteering. Would you agree, Ms.?
I would definitely agree. And Cerise, if I could sort of backtrack here, I guess I learned the value of volunteering and giving back at a very young age. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in Mississippi, and each Sunday evening after we would complete church, my father would load me up in his pickup truck, and we would go and visit the sick. We would check on the widows in the community. We would just help out wherever we could. And often, as a little girl, I would get annoyed by, wow, we're going to spend our Sunday afternoon going in and talk to this person and to, do something for this neighbor. But as time went by and as I entered college, I saw the value in exactly what my father's focus was. It's not about a business. We had our own a small business that we operated in town, but it wasn't about just making profit for that business. It was seeing the community grow, because when the community grows, everybody benefits from that. So that's how I kind of got my start as far as volunteering, and I have implemented that in my company as well as the lives that I touch. Prior to the engagement with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, I created the first ever Workforce Ready boot camp for Fulton County Youth Enrichment Program. And during this program, all of these students, they weren't your typical high school students or youth in the community. These were kids who perhaps had dropped out of school. They were young, unwed mothers. And the boot camp was a rigorous program supported by Fulton County, which allowed each student to come in and recreate him or herself. And through this program, one of the requirements was volunteering. And they had to access a volunteer opportunity and demonstrate so many hours or participate so many hours per month during that time. And they found that they really, really enjoyed this opportunity. Were finding job opportunities or leadways into the a higher education or college or technical school which they were interested.
And you probably know more of the statistics, but I know that in some of the research that I've done just in my volunteering effort, when a person is serving someone else, like you said, reinventing themselves, that's part of the psychological change that an individual will go to, even if something as simple as caring for a pet or something as small as that. And it like you said, it helps you to reinvent yourself, because we are called, like we were talking about earlier, spiritual principles, to serve each other and to bear each other's burdens. And like I said, with like 10,000 persons turning 65, that's part of, we're supposed to take care of our orphans and our widows. That's, even though it's a spiritual principle, but I always have to go back. It's an opportunity to have a business, because we had Fulton County on here a couple of weeks ago, And Mr. Pope was continuously talking about through the whole interview how the aging services is in need of services, whether it be from transmission of people, dialysis, transportation is a huge opportunity, etc., etc. And the way that Miss Emily is guiding us tonight through this show is you can enter in, and another caveat to that, you can enter in through volunteer to see if you like different careers.
Cerise, if I may, bring this a little bit closer to home. Everyone probably remembers in 2008 when the banks, everything crashed and everything kind of went crazy. I was impacted by that. At that time, I was working with a firm in consulting where I traveled to various U.S. and some international sites to improve business performance measures. And on my way home from this particular trip, I received a phone call from my project director who said they'll no longer be needing our services and you won't be returning to your work site. Well, it was a couple of weeks before Christmas, and I took a deep breath and I said, well, you know, what can I do, or, what can I continue to do in my efforts to, of course, support myself financially and also continue giving back to the community. That's when I came up with the idea of Macmillan and Associates Consulting, and before incorporating in 2010, I launched into volunteering. Job opportunities were very few in the area in which I worked, which was manufacturing consulting at that time. So I began volunteering at Fulton County voter registration. At that time, President Obama was gearing up to, which would be eventually to be our next president of the United States. I began that spring getting up early in the morning. I had a plan, even though there was no job, quote unquote, to go to. I would get up early in the morning and I would go down to the Fulton County office for voter registration and begin getting out the vote to individuals who were not registered to vote. Long story short, during the summer months, some dreaded Georgia heat, we were able to register like 1,400 people for that particular election year. And it was just amazing the lives that we touched. But more importantly, this extended an opportunity for me. It allowed me an opportunity to do something, Cerise, that I never dreamed possible. I was able to attend the presidential inauguration by totally volunteering. The person that I assisted throughout those months called me up one day and said, hey, how would you like to attend the inauguration? And I was, just speechless, basically. And I said, well, really, I don't think it's affordable for me. She said, I didn't ask you that. I wanted to let you know that you went to the inauguration compliments of me. So I was elated, needless to say, and I shared that story with many people everywhere I go, letting them know that that opportunity linked me with so many people, and it led me to my next career opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, nothing like volunteering and going to a presidential party at the White House.
Absolutely.
Presidential party at the White House. Miss Emily, tell our listeners how to get a hold of you.
Sure. I can be reached at egmcmillan@comcast.net. I welcome any comments, any suggestions, but most of all, I offer any type of assistance that I can, and we can speak one-on-one, we can arrange group settings, and we can talk more about how my services can assist you as an individual or your organization.
So you kind of already talked about some of the relationships that you've gained through networking. What other type of experiences have you had?
Sure. During that time, Cerise, I indicated to you there was I hate to say a gap in unemployment because I was working every day, even though it wasn't paid opportunities. It was an opportunity to network, an opportunity for me to present my story and also to connect with others who may lead me to the opportunities that that I was seeking. I also volunteered avidly for AARP, which is American Association for Retired Persons. Now, at that time, many persons asked, well, why would you volunteer for AARP? But I saw a need in the community because prayerfully, all of us will be at that age one day where we may seek assistance or may need to identify uh, resources that will assist us with the aging community. And as a result of that volunteer effort, knocking on doors, explaining to individuals about all the resources that were available that cost absolutely nothing, um, advising people of predatory lending, it led me to Washington, D.C., which is the headquarters for AARP. And I was able to speak on a radio show with a number of other AARP volunteers, uh, getting the story across to America about predatory lending, about fraud, and so many other issues that plague the elderly community.
Wow, you have had, I mean, volunteering. Business Speaks listeners, this is a great example of a person who went into it. She launched her vision of her business and she went into volunteering. Now, that I have never heard before. Most people go, yeah, the end result is to have cash flow, but her heart and her humility, she saw a need and she said, well, hey, I know that I have a gift that the world is waiting. She was a dreamer and she launched her business and volunteering efforts at first.
Absolutely.
So that was great. And then from that, she had a great opportunity to meet and network with some influential people who, it as a result of that, she was able to go to, I guess she went to D.C. not once but twice.
Several times, yes.
Several times. And one of them was for the inauguration of the presidency. And then everybody traditionally knows what AARP is. And she was able to go there and be a spokesperson for them. So that's a huge platform to benefit from the area of volunteering. I want to talk about the definition of volunteering.
Sure.
Do you have a definition? Because I kind of looked up one because I found out it could be a noun and a verb.
It is absolutely a noun and a verb, meaning action is required.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm sure, if you Google volunteering, it will give you a very specific definition and a very formal definition. But I would like to say that volunteering is your give back or giving back to the community, and enriching lives and influencing others. Um, it's all about action and activity, but the key to my definition is not expecting anything in return. And if you can approach a situation, whether it's volunteering or anything, not expecting anything in return, but to help others or to do diligence to society, then that says a lot about my definition of volunteering or what volunteering is really about.
Well, I think it's great that you take the action, the verb part of it, and make it an action because we all know as believers that faith without works is dead. And the word says, and we'll talk about it more because I want you to make sure that we wrap some good scriptures around this volunteering. We're using a 21st century word, but it's an ancient biblical principle, and it's a precept that the Bible calls us. And I'm going to quote a couple of scriptures: James chapter 1:27, Galatians 6:2, John 13:34, and the one that we always call the golden rule, Mark 12:30-31, that we'll love the Lord and that we'll love our neighbor as ourselves. You know, guys, we always are welcome and pleased to have our Thursday Tech Tip person, Daniel Claiborne. I call him Mr. FREE, and he is always the best five at 6:25. Dan, how are you this evening?
I am doing wonderful, and yourself?
I am doing great and always glad to have you. And I have my note ink pen ready to take notes, so take it away, Dan.
All right. So, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to stop by and ask you one question. understand this on the internet. Some of the different sections that you have on this app is they call it the Business Info Editor. It allows you to update your business information, your map, your blog. It allows you to see how people will see your site through it view your business on Google. Um, and it has the business editor. It all has another section called Insight, and that gives everyone visibility to your site. It gives everyone the ability to engage with your site. And another area is called reviews, and of course that's where you will receive most of your reviews from your customers. And at some point in time, you can respond back to those. And once again, we have the fourth section is called YouTube. And you know what YouTube is, but with this, you can get engagement information on your video once you put it out there through Google My Business. So I think that the app is very well organized. It has a good, sweet feel to it and very intuitive as well.
Dan,
So to summarize, that the app always it will manage multiple locations from one dashboard. It updates your business name, address, and hours, all of that information. You manage and respond to customer reviews. You post updates and photos to your Google Plus. Um, you can even manage locations 24 hours a day. You can monitor your analytics and post performance. So many things that you can do, and it's also available not only in Android, but it's available on the iOS. So that's what I have for you today, and hopefully that's something that you can use. Do you have any questions?
what is the name of the app again?
App is called Google My Business.
And Dan, is it FREE?
It is FREE. It's free and very intuitive. So it's not something that will take you a difficult time to learn and apply.
Dan, tell our listeners how to get a hold of you again.
Yes, if you need me, I'm Dan Claiborne. You can call me at 678-386-6871, or you can catch me or email me at daniel.claiborne, Clayborn, at theclaiborngroup.com.
Dan, we thank you and we look forward to seeing you next week. See you next week, Dan.
Awesome. I definitely will, and I always will have something very exciting and new to share with yes. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Once again, Dan always comes to us every week with the magic FREE. Business Speaks, dreamers, small entrepreneurs, future business owners. He has given us some great apps. Everybody should be up and running. What I love about this Google My Business, if you heard him, once again, it's an app that you can download. And what the key word is, especially if you're in the Google AdWords, you can run a assessment and it will tell you how your particular website ranks compared to the industry that it's in. Not so much if it's on the first page or second page, but how it ranks as far as your AdWords and the key indicators that you're using to draw business into your website. We have Miss Emily McMillan in the studio with us. We're talking about volunteering and networking. This is a great topic for all the family, the kids, etc., etc. We always want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsor tonight is Divine Order Restoration Ministries. I'll tell you when we come back from the break where I'll be speaking this weekend. I'll be starting my summer speaking tour. I want you to be part of it. Get your coat, get your glass of water. Always get your favorite thing I call popcorn. And we'll see you back here in a few minutes. I'm Cerise Hall, and you are watching Business Speaks.
Great, Cerise. You're a crow.
everyone should be interested in, especially as it relates to our young people. If you're in high school, elementary school, et cetera, you should have the opportunity to do volunteer work around your neighborhood, your church, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Clubs. It is an important essential for every family to give back, even if you start within your home. Let's always remember the definition of economics. The whole vision of Business Speaks is around economics, but the definition of economics is household. The first business that we all have is in our home and in our children. Family is the number one business that we should be building. Once again, we always want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsor tonight is Divine Order Restoration Ministries, Pastor Deronche Shorn, and I want to tell you about an event this weekend. I'll be speaking at the Women of Influence Conference at the Reefs of Joy Outreach and Deliverance Ministry on this Saturday. It will be a wonderful conference talking about marketplace ministry, giving you tools and calls to action to create or enhance the business that you already have. It's this coming Saturday. The address is 4862 Glenwood Road. It's at a popular church, that big church on Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. Please come out. I would love to meet some of my Business Speaks audience. You can go on my Facebook. I am working on a website, so that's coming soon. Mr. Patrick is helping me with that. Once again, it's at the Reefs of Joy Outreach and Deliverance Ministry at 4862 Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. It is a marketplace ministry. The conference title is called Women of Influence, and your girl here will be the keynote speaker. So come on out and let's get some more Business Speaks information and fulfill that dream and that vision that our God has put in our heart. We're in the studio with Emily McMillan, CEO of McMillan Associates and Consulting. She wanted to talk, and we don't want to miss, the whole world has been talking about Prince, but it's something else that she wanted to talk about as it relates to STEM, science, technology. It was a science, technology, engineering, arts now, and math. So talk about what you wanted to share with the audience.
Oh, sure. I think it's very important to mention that, of course, Prince music was phenomenal. And I grew up in the era of Prince, and I remember, dancing and singing along to all of Prince's greatest hits.
But we're saved now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then and there, just kind of slipped along the way. But Prince's beautiful music, and Prince, the person, was very quiet, but he also was very impactful in his community. He promoted technology opportunities, as Cerise mentioned, and the organization is called Yes We Code. It's an Oakland-based program aimed at low-income youth in the technology sector. So a lot of times when we're listening to music, we don't think about the philanthropic efforts that musicians and other actors or entertainers have involved themselves in the community, and I think that's a very important thing to mention about Prince.
And I think one of the other aspects of him being involved with a lot of young people and a lot of young programs, because like myself, Miss Emily's 21, but like myself, Prince and I would be considered baby boomers, but he kept himself very relevant in the life of our millennial group, 12 to 40, is because he saw the need to give them an opportunity through funding, which is the action word. Funding, he put his money where his mouth is, but to fund their creativity. And Yes We Code, like he said, is an Oakland base, but there's a lot of umbrellas under that Yes the Code program that impacted the STEM to give our young people the opportunity to work for companies like Apple, work for companies like Microsoft, to be technicians within their local high school, to where they don't have to call people out. They train the students in the school to be able to fix computers and upload software and update software. So the reason why Miss Emily wanted to go back and keep talking about Prince, because it's so important. And I'd like to ask you, why is it important, besides the obvious, to be in the community? And we've kind of talked about a lot of things, but from a business aspect, and Prince was a businessman, why is it important for businesses to embrace, and I'm using the right word, embrace volunteering and giving back, as you stated before?
Absolutely. Um, Oftentimes, the community is not even aware of what resources are available. So, if businesses are not encouraging volunteering or their employees to become involved in volunteering and community efforts, uh, it's a negative for their organization to show that it's all about profit and gain. I worked for 10 years with the Coca-Cola Company right here in Atlanta. And one of the things I will give them credit for uh, is not only, producing a great beverage, but they also encourage their employees to volunteer. And at the time that I worked with the Coca-Cola Company, Big Brothers and Big Sisters was uh, a big opportunity for employees to go out in the community and work with the youth in the community and encourage them to be the entrepreneurs and the technological geniuses that they've become. So I think that's critically important. People don't always want to know it's about the money or about the dollar. They want to see that if I'm spending my money in this particular organization, this grocery store, what are you doing for my community? You're coming in my community and you're setting up shop in my community, but what are you doing to give back, or what are you doing to encourage youth and young adults and even um, middle-aged and elderly folks to do for their community and work as a partnership?
And which goes into a great question. What area does the faith-based community need to be aware of in serving needs? And I think, you know, I may get some pushback on this, but the same way that a business goes into a community to serve and extract resources, when a church comes in and is part of the community, what are some of the awareness opportunities where you said sometimes the faith-based community doesn't know the resource or sometimes even the needs of the community? How can we make our faith-based community more aware besides, I'm saying this and I'm saying I'm going out on a limb, more than giving food and clothing? What are other needs that are like some industry trends that you've seen in the past couple of years?
Absolutely, Cerise. And both of us will probably be going out on a limb when we say this, but too often, some of our churches, and it doesn't really matter about the size or the number of the congregation, sometimes we have a tendency to become self serving. And what I mean by a self serving organization is we forget about we need to extend that arm out into the community,
Amen.
not only uh, to rain out the gospel or the word of God, but to also lend a physical helping hand. The Bible even tells us, when a man is thirsty, you don't only give him a good word, but you also give him bread to eat. So many of the ministries throughout the country and right here in Atlanta, we offer food banks and we offer assistance with various household situations that may occur. But one way that churches can reach out is offering their ministries to the community, specific ministries, for example, like counseling, marital counseling, counseling for teenagers, drug abuse, um, gang violence, relationship skills, where you have an opportunity. I am personally a member of New Life Missionary Baptist Church, where we are engaging, trying to get the youth in that particular area, the Douglas and Cobb County areas, trying to get them involved in relationship skill building. So there's more than just, again, your food pantries or your, uh, you know, other ministries that are very common. There's an opportunity to extend your ministries and offer your services as a voluntary or without any cost or um, expectations from them.
I think, like I said, one of the points of mission business speaks mission statement is to expose goods, services, and products. And I think sometimes, which is part of my footprint that I want to leave a legacy with, that when you talk about marketplace ministry, you do have to incorporate goods, products, and services. And to your point about the relational part, where you can partner with, you know, some of the organizations we've had here, the Urban League, My Brother's Keeper, et cetera, because a lot of our young people, if they knew how to have relationships, if we just focus on for the next 5 years on conflict resolution,
Absolutely.
as far as relationships, that would cut down on the mass killing of our young people killing each other. And I think that's a great point you talk about, and that's something now that a lot of times we as a culture are embarrassed because it's a lot of mental disease that's going on
Yes.
through our homeless community, which I've worked extensively with. Like you said, hurt and pain from past things that we carry from a childhood into adulthood that we're not able to talk out without having shame or embarrassment. Because, you know, some of the topics we've talked about here, Gospel Body TV has taken a pushback. But the main purpose of us doing this, one, is to create opportunities for business. Some young person could be a social worker within their church. You have a church that's 5,000 or 6,000 people, but you're in a community that can serve 30 or 40,000 people. You talk about it as like for example, a city of Decatur. That's a business with a spiritual principle that where you're helping your community in relationships. And like I said, conflict management would be a topic that I think that would be a great push for a church to be able to service for that. And that's great that you brought that out, because a lot of times, like you said, where we talk about the needs, either we don't know or we kind of shy away from. And the church is the hospital, so the hospital is where all the sick spiritual people go. So that's a great opportunity. If you're listening, young person, you're in school going for psychology or social work, starting in a ministry of relationship counseling or some sort for the family inside a church. I think that's a great point.
You're absolutely right, Cerise. I'll go back to some of my prior volunteer experiences, and you know, just the scope of how broad volunteering or engaging in the community can be. A number of years ago, I volunteered at the DeKalb Rape Crisis Center, and it was a very interesting experience where I had an opportunity to go inside of area high schools and talk to the students about date rape and how to recognize signs of abuse. And immediately, you know, after the class would end, students would come up and they would say, you know, Miss McMillan, I know someone. And, you know, I could see it in their eyes where it wasn't that they knew someone, it was actually themselves that they were referring to. So many times, you know, our churches, communities, civic leaders, again, as you mentioned, we can partner with these organizations and extend all of these efforts. Always welcome additional help, because many of them are very lean funded. Their funds are very limited. So they would welcome an opportunity to enter into local churches or local ministries to help get the word out, hosting a blood bank, blood drive, at your particular ministry. When I was a volunteer at the American Cancer Society, we would go into the communities. Specifically, I would target the churches because of the high rate of prostate and breast cancer in the African American community. So partnerships are always welcome.
Yes, and strongly encourage. And, you know, we've had some organizations here who we've sent out a bell call and given out their information so you can call them. And Miss McMillan, tell our Business Speaks listeners again how to get a hold of you. And audience, once again, you can't say you don't know, because we're giving you the resources and the contact person to build some of these things into your churches, to bring them into your churches, to speak or teach. And I always encourage, I know that people, that money, like she said, budgets are mean and lean, and we're already into the conclusion of our first quarter in business terminology. We're ending our first quarter, about to go into our second quarter. So at least I say, at least at minimum, have somebody like McMillan Associates and their consulting piece come in and train your staff, and then let your
Absolutely.
staff train your body of believers. But we always walk away with a call to action that now you know you have resources and a contact person to educate and reveal goods, products, and services. Miss McMillan, tell us, our listeners, again how to get a hold of you.
Sure, I can be reached at E.G. McMillan, McMillan, at Comcast.net, or find me on LinkedIn.com.
LinkedIn.com. And we all know that's a great way that you can reach out and make a connection. And
Yes.
that way you can get a conversation started. Miss McMillan, tell us about some of the trends in industry from the consulting side. Where are people? I know in Atlanta, one of the big trends is construction, et cetera. Kind of talk to us about some trends, and then we'll segue into those trends and how we can network to get involved in those trends.
Wow, Cerise, that is a loaded question for sure. As I mentioned earlier, I began this journey uh, in 2008 and actually incorporated my business in 2010. And one of the major trends that has been trending since 2008 and probably prior to that is the technology piece. It is. It was very. I was very reluctant, admittingly, of delving into the social media thing, but I strongly, strongly encourage the business industry to find your niche as far as which mode or method of or which one of the social media aspects, and there's so many of them out there now, best fits your business unit. Um, that's the way that people are communicating now. We thought that email was going to be the end result of how we would communicate. But we're finding now, as soon as we learn Twitter, here comes Tumblr, or here comes Instagram, or it's constantly changing. So, as far as the business trends, social media is at the top of the list, which encompasses technology. And I'm very glad to see that manufacturing is back on the move.
Yeah, it is.
We have right here in Georgia, for many that may or may not know, we've got the automotive industry that has come into Georgia. We have a Kia plant down in LaGrange. We have Mercedes Benz operating out of Sandy Springs. We are becoming right here in Georgia, and specifically right here in Atlanta, manufacturing. There's just a wide uh, range of construction projects that are going on right here in the metro area that will lead to business opportunities such as the new Atlanta Falcons Stadium, the new Atlanta Braves Stadium. The list is endless. But watch those trends of, I'll say, technology first, because that's going to lead you to the other opportunities. Um, you really don't have any excuse as to not being involved in what's going on because it's at your fingertips now.
Exactly. And I think as you talk about the manufacturing, as when we started Business Speaks, we talked about how I went to go talk to Miss Katarina Taylor, the CEO and president of DeKalb County Chamber of Commerce, and she talked about the GM plant. And one thing Atlanta is known for is construction. And I told you before is that one of the top jobs that we're behind in America globally is the CDL drivers. They're seeking CDL drivers. And then one of the next things that, which I think is great for a young person that you can go into and be an apprenticeship, there's a huge need for welders also. Welders and, of course, even blacksmiths, concrete layers, bricklayers. These are not so much college educated. They are trade educated jobs, not so much college jobs, but you can come out making more than a college graduate. Because I grew up with the welder, Mr. Weaver. He welded for everybody in the community, whether it was a car, a tractor, trailer, whatever. He made like 50, $55 an hour. So that's a great industry to go in. Go ahead on, Emily.
Absolutely. I wanted to mention that my background, as far as education is concerned, I have a undergraduate degree in broadcast journalism, but that particular degree has not stopped me in just about any industry other than I can say the medical profession where I know I would need specific training, and the law profession, of course, where it requires a formal degree, of course. But there's endless opportunities. It goes right back to the initial discussion, which is volunteering and networking, that can get you to wherever it is that you want. I would like to, if I could, Cerise, go back to Fulton County when I worked for the Office of Workforce Development. Actually, the way I got the position was through volunteering. I contacted the Human Resources Department of Fulton County and asked, could I volunteer? I said, currently, I'm in between opportunities. I never say I'm unemployed. I'm in between opportunities. May I volunteer? And within 2 months, they hired me for a permanent role, and that's when I created the boot camp. So I, I, I just can't explain, I can't find words to tell you how very important it is to network and find out. And through workforce development programs, it also teaches individuals. Each county has their own resource, but individuals can find out how to get the specific training, as you mentioned, Cerise, for CDL or welding or other opportunities.
Okay, that's great. It's like you have a lot of opportunity through your volunteer efforts, and that's great. And it's really encouraging for our young people that you hear these examples that kind of show you how to get in, how to get your foot in the door, not so much as is a job right away, but an opportunity to get a job because you're on the inside of the particular company. We are packed with a wealth of volunteering information. When we come back from the break, we'll go right into networking, the science of networking, some techniques that Miss Emily will give us. We're in the studio with Emily McMillan, the CEO of McMillan and Associates and Consulting. I am so excited about these opportunities to show our family and our business listeners and audience. You should have your business finder writing all this information down. When we come back from the break, we'll continue with our volunteer networking segment. This is Cerise Hall, and you are watching Business Speaks. mind visiting with us today?
Oh, I am enjoying it.
Tell our Business Speaks listeners again how to get a hold of you.
Sure, you can reach me at E.G. McMillan, McMillan, at Comcast.net, or you can link in or connect with me through LinkedIn.com.
LinkedIn.com. Would that be Emily McMillan also?
Yes, Emily McMillan at LinkedIn.com.
Okay. So we've had a really dive-in conversation about volunteers, and what I like about our interview tonight, Ms. McMillan has shown us how the benefits of volunteering has impacted her career, when even to the point when she was in between opportunities. I love that. I have to get that away from you. In between opportunities, she was able to go in and volunteer and convert that into employment.
Absolutely.
That's great. So I want to ask you, what about your vision of McMillan and Associates? Why do you think? What was your passion besides in starting this company? What was your passion about starting the company? What was your vision?
Sure. Again, I received my inspiration, I think, from my parents. I grew up in a very small town in Mississippi, and my parents, my father in particular, had a third grade education. He served his country in the Korean War, and my mom graduated from high school. And during those years, it was very challenging in Mississippi in the 60s, but they were able to I opened and operate a business for 30 years, a restaurant business, and it had a tremendous impact on my life in that I wanted to, from a very early age, be my own boss, number one. And number two, I saw the importance of giving back because when you give back to the community, they'll give back to you. So that is what led me on my path of one day owning my own business, which is McMillan and Associates Consulting, and leading me to opportunities that was just limitless, Cerise. I really and truly believe, my faith, specifically in Deuteronomy 19 and 8, which talks about, enlarging your territory.
Sure.
And so I found that throughout these opportunities or connections that I've made throughout life from coast to coast, and I don't ever meet a stranger. I make it a point, no matter where I go in the world, to make sure I meet a friend. So that's just been my vision, and also to pass that on to my children, who I required of them, even at a young age, to do volunteer work. And you don't have to go far. You don't have to go seeking big opportunities for volunteering or networking. You can start right in your home, as you mentioned earlier, with your family, with your neighbors, with your local church.
And I think for a young person, where we're talking about family, and we always, like I said, family is an inclusive term. You could teach little Susie or little Johnny at 4 or 5 years old, hey, there's Mrs. Wilson, who's a senior citizen. Let's go ask her if you want us to take her trash to the curb and wait for the trash people to come. We're talking about something as small as that, to birth and seed into our kids about giving back. And I like the way Miss Millen, with the way Emily said it, expecting nothing in return. Okay. Now we've talked about volunteering. I'm ready to dig into the networking, which I said before. If you're a high school a senior, or definitely a sophomore, junior, senior in college, networking is a very important piece, because most of the billionaire deals that are made in the world are really not made in a boardroom with social media. They could be made on Skype, on the golf course, going out for dinner, etc., etc. So, Emily, kind of talk to us about the science of networking.
Great. Thank you, Cerise. That's an extremely important part of your career path and your future, is the science of networking. And it took me, admittingly, it took me a moment to get to be that pro at networking. The first important thing I want to say is eye contact. Uh, Being able to connect with an individual, not just with your talents and skills, what opportunities or information or resources they may be able to offer, but making a personal connection. Eye contact may include extending a handshake. It may just involve a nod, a simple smile, and also being observant. I found that um, being observant of many of the things that are going on in and around the person, a person's or company that you're networking with is vitally important. Uh, when I sought to gain an opportunity at the Coca-Cola Company, I found through networking that there was a couple at my church, both of which worked for Coca-Cola. One was a chemist and one was an engineer. And I began having a conversation, and rather than saying, "Oh, find me a job there. Can you get me a job there?" And that seemingly is the question that we want to ask. Well, can you get me on, or do you know, or are they hiring? So you want to kind of approach that with a little bit more conversational as well as interest to the individual. So I got them to talk about their experiences at Coca Cola, and before I knew it, she had invited me to a lunch. And I said, well, if I get inside that big building, I'm pretty much halfway there. I found after having lunch that the Coca Cola Company received thousands of resumes that during that time when the internet wasn't as popular, they may or may not have been able to even review the number of resumes. So I felt very fortunate to get through that door and find my way to an opportunity that ended me a 10-year career opportunity at this large corporation simply by networking.
So I kind of want to talk about let's talk about the definition of networking. You kind of said it through your
Hmm.
experience, but it said the network is to interact with other people. Like she said, she knew somebody at a company where she wanted to work at, to exchange information and to develop contacts, especially to further one's career. That's the purpose of a network.
Yes.
So even when you build a relationship, like she said, she knew some people at her church that was at a company where she wanted to work. She didn't go up to them and say, "Hey, get me a job." What she did was she built a relationship built on their interests, but she knew the end goal was to get on the inside of Coca-Cola. Along with that, she had a strategy.
Yes.
Okay, she if the I mean, we're calling it what it is. The strategy, she targeted the people who can get her on the
That's
inside,
exactly
the
right.
Coca-Cola people, and then but with the goal of getting an employment or business opportunity. And I think what's important here, sometimes we as a culture, and I'm specifically speaking to the African American culture, we don't know how to network. And like she said, even though it is a handshake, the proper clothing or whatnot, but it's about building a relationship with the person and asking, asking them, what is your experience, et cetera, et cetera. And I think our young people, it's important. There should be, and maybe that's a business thing that we should do. It should be a class on networking because Eventbrite is so huge, constant contact. They have all these events, but when you go, actually, what do you actually do? So, Miss Emily, kind of tell us about. Okay, I have my suit on. I got my power blue. I got my pinstripe gray on. But kind of tell me as I walk into the room, how should I present myself in a room of sharks?
Absolutely. And that is a big one. It can be extremely intimidating. And here in Atlanta, we have a number of job fairs. We see job fairs, and they can fill the Coliseum with individuals in search of jobs. But how do I stand out? How can I distinguish myself among 2,000 other applicants? Again, it's being observant, following up, asking the right questions, but more critically important is having a plan before you even get to the network event. In most cases, or in all cases, when I would attend a networking event, I would have a specific goal. My goal tonight when I attend XYZ networking, I am going to meet 3 people. I am going to exchange business cards or telephone numbers, social media addresses with these three individuals, and I'm going to follow up 3 days later. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do just those three things, you've accomplished a lot, and you'd be surprised at the individuals who will respond to you from a follow up call. One of the things I learned in my research and studies as far as human resources and networking is that a simple thank you note. I enjoyed meeting you, or I really enjoyed our conversation. And again, taking the focus off, I'm unemployed, I need a job, help me out. I got these bills to be paid. Focus in on getting that person to give you information about their experiences, which will in turn lead you to opportunities.
And I think another thing, another strategy, I know when you talk about the job fairs, if you're in an industry, if you're in an industry, like say for instance, if you're in the nursing industry, like I said, Eventbrite in Atlanta, there's something going on in this city 7 days a
Every
week,
day.
every day. As a young person, if you're in nursing, the medical field, photography, modeling, mortuary science, welding, construction, you can find a networking event online to go meet some influential people that can help you with your easier career path. I think that the job fair is a networking event, but there are other social networking events that will open the door for you much more easily to get into the job fair networking. And I think another thing that I like Emily to touch on is mentoring. Mentoring is a way of networking and volunteering. And I mean, from Mayor Kashim Reed to the Governor Deal, everybody has a mentoring program. And as a young person, I think that even as early as 14 or 15 years old, you can mentor someone else, each one reach one, and that's a way for you to get in the foot. Now, there's a difference between the volunteering and network. We're specifically talking about networking now, to be in the room with some influential people. So, like we said, when you get into the room, she gave you some good steps that you should be writing down. You said take 3 business cards.
Absolutely, or take a stack of business cards just in case. But your goal is to at least distribute those business cards to at least three people. And
So
that's why
who should those
indicated
3 people be? Like let me give you an example so
Mhm.
we could just make it lay. Okay, like so we just said, for example, Tyler Perry just got Ford McPherson. Okay, and if I'm a student in the film industry, if I go into a room and there's Dr. Oz and then there's Tyler Perry, walk me through how do I get the network going? Because if I have 3 cards, do I give them to 3 doctors or 3 people who am I giving these cards to?
Absolutely. Now, not to say that the person who is the CEO or the director of this particular organization is not going to respond. But what I would identify, if I saw Dr. Oz and I saw Tyler Perry in a room, I would also find out those individuals who are closest to Tyler Perry or to Dr. Oz. They all have producers, they have writers, they have support staff, publicists, whomever. And in order to get your foot in the door, it would be to your advantage to get to those individuals, get some specific names, get a specific name, telephone number, email address, uh, social network address, so that you can contact or be in direct contact with that individual. And also, it's very important not just to take down the information. Make sure you repeat that information back to make sure you have it accurate, and all the times of availability. Repeating. I learned a lot from, I teach this a lot in my networking classes, Cerise, that you mentioned earlier. Repeating information back to confirm that I have everything accurate, it is correct, and I won't get home and say, oh no, did he say 7-6 or 6th Street or Cent Street? And you can't go back. You have that 30-second window of opportunity where you can get to those individuals. Fine, take a shot at speaking directly to the Oprahs or the Dr. Oz or whomever. But I think it's more critically important to allow a producer, because guess what? That producer who works for Tyler Perry, or that on-set personnel that works for Tyler Perry, they're trying to build a network as well.
Sure.
So if they can build the right or find the right individual for this particular production without having to go out and scout and do additional work, they welcome those opportunities.
So, and I think she what and then another point is, if I'm a person in the film industry, when I'm networking a room or working a room, how they say, they sometimes they call it, I'm working the people that's directly in my industry. If I'm in the film industry, I'm going to be geared more toward the producers, the Tyler Perry versus the Dr. Oz or somebody, because when you're in a networking environment, you have to also, like she said, that visual, eye contact, right handshake, the close, and all of that. But it's a certain style and technique you have to have with that also. And Emily says she teaches this networking class, and I'm pretty sure in there she talks about body language, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
But this is a real skill. I think universities ought to have a class in at least one semester of it. Maybe Miss Emily, you can vet that for me. Is this networking piece? Because a lot of times when you get into a room, like she said, who did you know that you should take business card? Is it appropriate to pass them out? Who should you be targeting? And I think when you're looking in the room also, and this is a big one for me, and this may be just the Kansas City in me, you look in the room and be very observant of who are the movers and shakers. Who are the people being drawn to as a magnet? You could speak on that.
Oh, sure. Typically, when I walk into a room of strangers, whether it's at an engagement function, or, even a social event, I should say, I find targets in the room. And I find my target in the room and say, okay, that particular gentleman, I don't know anything, I don't know his or her background, but I'm going to target that gentleman in the black suit, or I'm going to target that lady in the blue dress. And I move on. It may be that, you make that immediate connection, but you may find that, okay, this person that I targeted, she's, in the medical field. I'm not interested. I really want to go into production, or I really want to go into manufacturing. So let me continue to work the room to find out where I can find that person. But always find you a target if you're in an unfamiliar territory. Many times the networking opportunities, the job fairs, they will have tables or designated areas where you'll know specifically this is XYZ company, and you can go right there. But for those uncharted territories, as we may want to refer to them, you have to find some targets to get the conversation started. And again, in my networking classes, we very much emphasize the eye contact, the appropriate dress, the communication skill, the ability to, as you mentioned, Cerise, work the room. One of the things that I do want to mention, Cerise, and especially with recent graduates, recent college graduates,
Sure.
one of the components of our business is to not only assist or to offer resources for individuals trying to make their way into college, but also what happens once they receive that very valuable degree that they've worked so hard for. And, they come to me, Cerise, and they'll say, wow, Ms. McMillan, I've gotten a degree. I was a 4.0 student, but I can't find a job. I don't know what to do. Much of it has to do with, again, the art or the science of networking. And if you don't position yourself appropriately, it's going to be very challenging. It's also going to become very frustrating for individuals trying to make their mark in society and enter into that dream job or dream opportunity. And that applies even if your opportunity is to be an entrepreneur. You still must have networking skills. Cerise, as a matter of fact, networking skills are more important, or could be considered more important as an entrepreneur as opposed to someone who's working your typical 9-to-5 job.
I would agree, because it is something about, like I said, that's why I keep emphasizing that if you are a senior in high school or a sophomore, junior, senior in college, you should be learning these networking skills now, and not only taking the principles. So now you can say you do know. You can't say you don't know, because we have an expert here, Emily, who has a business, who's telling you some of the basic things you can do to work a room. Let's call it what it is, because you have to rise to the top as the cream, the best of the best, because it's so competitive now. And I'm kind of like a rebellious person. I understand that social media is important, but it's the art of the one-on-one contact that our young people have to understand. Like she said, her personality, she doesn't meet any strangers, and I'm that way type too. But as you learn to network, and this is a skill you practice in the mirror, etc., getting keyword. I mean, I know I'm niching all the way down, but these are things that are really relevant. The keywords for the industry that you're in, be able to speak to it. And I think as we go back to the definition, the pure definition of networking, it's an exchange. So as you're asking for something, you have to be able to give something. And I want Emily to talk about, she talked about the 30 seconds. Talk about the pitch in network, like, your elevator pitch or whatever. How is important is that in the area of networking?
Absolutely. Everyone should have that, what I call the 30-second elevator speech, where you have a very small window of opportunity to sell yourself or to tell an organization or individuals who I am, what I stand for, what my philosophy, what my goals are, and how I can best fit into your organization. And that takes a lot of practice. During some of my networking classes that I teach to students, or to individuals, I should say. I'm saying students, but it's open to any individual, is that you have to practice that speech over and over and over and over. Get in front of the mirror. Hi, my name is Emily McMillan, and I'm ready to conquer the world based on the opportunities that I have given or have received in the areas of broadcasting, manufacturing, process improvement. I can share with you my resources, my knowledge, my skills to help improve your organization and to make an impact in the world. However you want to position yourself for the person that you're talking to or the company that you're trying to engage is critically important. And it's not easy. It's not easy, Cerise, because that's constantly changing, and we get nervous no matter how much exposure or how good we are in this type of business. It's still very difficult to stand before a total stranger and give an MO. What I found with many individuals when I used to recruit or interview persons for jobs is that they knew nothing about the organization for which they wanted to become associated with. And that was just like a big no-no. You finally get this opportunity. I mentioned to you earlier, getting in the doors of the Coca-Cola company, for example. It would have been so very not a good idea if I knew nothing about the Coca-Cola company. So I took time to research the company, find out, how did the Coca-Cola company begin? What makes, what are they doing on the stock market? Hit those highlights and hot buttons, and I promise you, every time that you just mentioned, a good networker knows at least 2 to 3 things about the organization before they even engage in conversation.
Wow. So if you as a consultant are teaching a class on networking, Business Speaks listeners, audience, family, it is important to get this skill. One of the best networkers that I have heard of in the history of my age is former President Bill Clinton. They said he was an excellent networker, putting people together, and the key element of his success as far as networking was charisma.
Absolutely.
Charisma. Talk to our audience about charisma and how important that is, because Emily, you have a lot of charisma.
Thank you, Cerise. It is important. Again, I mentioned some of the key factors, one of them is to be observant. Many times it breaks the ice, and it also relieves a lot of the anxiety and nervousness that you may have simply by being observant. And you never know where a simple conversation, but I will add, Cerise, be sincere. If I mention to you, oh, what a lovely blue dress you have on. Now, I may know, or I don't, but I do like the color blue rather. But I don't like blue. I don't like that dress. And that insincere comment certainly comes across. So please, please be genuine when you offer whatever it is that you've observing. And it doesn't have to necessarily be anything physical. Oh, what a nice dress, or what a nice color. You could also say, hey, Mr. CEO or Mr. Networking Guy, I noticed that Forbes magazine listed you as the top 100 places to work, and I certainly would like to become a part of that. Oh, you read Forbes magazine. So there, you open up an opportunity to let the individual know that I'm not just focused in on what my needs are for today. I'm also focused in on where is this company going. I noticed that 6 years from now, you're planning to expand your organization into 6 other countries. Wow. Information like that is very powerful.
I mean, very powerful, because when you talk about sincere, it shows the listener or the CEO or the decision maker that you were sincere enough to take the time to research my company. And I know we've been talking about a lot of Fortune 500 companies, but for the small business persons, gaining business to business, interacting where a person can come in and do an apprenticeship, volunteer. I always encourage you. I'm a big proponent of the small business person. You can do these same things and get the same impact. If you have 5 employees, you should be encouraging them to volunteer and give back to the community. Emily, I've heard you talk passionately throughout all of your answers about the youth, specifically since we live in Atlanta. I'm sure you're talking about our youth in Atlanta. What really fires you up or gets your juices really going about the condition of our young people today?
Great. That's a very good question, Cerise. And what gets me really fired up is to see wasted talent. And what can I do to encourage, enhance, stimulate involvement or growth of those hidden or wasted talents? And what I mean by wasted talents, I do want to clarify, meaning that there's so much within the individual that needs to come out or needs to be expressed, and it needs not to be wasted. And doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't mean that in a negative tone, in the sense that how do we get that person to the next level in life and not keep their talents hidden under a rock, so to speak, hidden under a rock. So that really gets me fired up. You know, I find myself being extremely observant. Everywhere I go, I try to notice people. What are they doing? When I see young people doing, very, very small things, that could eventually lead to something great or something big, I just offer up just volunteer some information. You're very good at that. You sound very good. Have you ever thought about opportunities to, that would lead you to a career in singing or a career in, broadcasting and so forth? So that really gets me fired up when I see an individual, they're out there giving it all they've gotten. They just need that little nudge to take them on to the next level.
That's a great answer, and that's a great, passionate answer. As we take our break, Business Speaks listeners, you should have a plethora of information, including Emily's contact information, to get a hold of her to add value to your organization. Get your glass of water, a glass of ice water. Keep your notebook out. The call to action is 15 minutes a week, family, that you discuss what we talked about today to your family. Hold that thought. My name is Cerise Hall, and you're watching Business Speaks on Gospel Body TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm your host, Cerise Hall, and you are watching Business Speaks. We've been in the studio with Emily McMillan, the CEO of McMillan and Associates and Consulting, and we've been talking heavily, digging down to some bare basics about volunteering and networking. I want to tell you again where I'll be this weekend. I'll be at the Women of Influence Marketplace Ministry Conference. It'll be at the Reefs of Joy Outreach Deliverance Ministry Center at 4862 Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia, 30035. The conference will be held from 10 to 5. We will be talking about a plethora of dream builders, entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, kid entrepreneurship information to help build your vision in the marketplace ministry. Emily McMillan is here with us in the studio. Tell our listeners again how to get a hold of you, Emily.
Thank you, Cerise. Please contact me at E.G. McMillan, that's McMillan at Comcast.net, or you can reach out to me at Emily McMillan at LinkedIn.com.
That LinkedIn.com will take you right to her. You can procure her services. She has an added value. I want to kind of talk about that. I'm just playing devil advocate right now. What separates McMillan and Associates from the other consulting competition here in Atlanta?
Well, Cerise, that goes back to that 30-second elevator speech that you need to be prepared for. I feel very, very confident in saying that my husband and I, who are the primary consultants for our firm, can clearly distinguish our particular organization because of the diversity that we bring. And I don't mean to throw the word diversity around very lightly. My husband has a wealth of opportunity throughout his, having gained them through his experiences and career. But the diversity that we offer, many times consulting firms, they specialize or only have a background in a particular area. But we have had opportunities and knowledge and skill in probably over 10 different industries, including education, manufacturing, human resources, nonprofit or faith-based organizations, airline industry, retail, sales and marketing, and others. And that's because of the opportunities that have come, that we've had, opportunities that we have experienced. So that's what makes McMillan and Associates so special. And I'd also like to say that while we are a for-profit organization, we also give back, and we also like to encourage individuals to become a part of their community.
Wow, you have articulated that well throughout our broadcast and your interview process, that you give back and you know how to give back. You understand the strategies and how important. Very few business owners talk about the social economics that goes into a business plan. And I'm a huge advocate. 10, 15 years back, I grew up in Walmart, and, the Walton family always gave back in abundance to their associates and to the communities in which they serve. And I think you have articulated that well, and the necessary need for volunteering and networking to give back to the community. And it's a type of tithe, really it is. And the word of God does not come back void. And sometimes we as believers, we say, well, why is Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Michael Shine and Michael Dell and all them, their companies are so successful? They understand the principle of giving back. You talked about at the top of the hour how you had a mentee who was a Bill Gates scholar, and he seeks opportunities to serve underserved communities. And as a small business person, you and I, we're doing that now. You don't have to be at the Coca-Cola level. You can do it right here at the level and at the sales volume band that you're at right now. Young people, it is important as millennials, as you grow, get out of college, out of high school into college. If you're a rapper, you need to give back. If you're a chef, you need to give back. If you're a faith-based organization, you give back. Everybody needs to give back. And I think when we talk about the verse, build up my storehouse, That's part of it. If everybody's tithing when somebody's in need, the resources are already there. We don't have to take up a pass a hat or anything. The resources are already there. And I think as children of God, as we talked about, one of the ways that we know we're a Christian is how we love and support each other. But I have a blackjack question for you.
Oh boy.
I love to ask this question. What is America going to be like after President Obama, in your opinion?
Wow. Interesting question. I like to, just as sort of a little hobby, I like to follow politics, and many times, especially during election years, I stay glued to news shows. Don't watch a lot of television shows, but I stay glued to the news and current events because I find it to be beneficial not only to know as an individual what's going on, but it also supports my business efforts and what my goals are as far as future opportunities. Life after President Obama will be very interesting in that, first of all, he was the first African-American president to hold the highest office of the land. So that will be a change itself, just to see different faces walking around the White House lawn. But I think the legacy in which he has given the United States, also the inspiration that his entire family has given the United States, will hopefully help the world and the United States to be a better place. I think life after President Obama will be a drive, not only a drive for African American children, but for children of every color, race, culture, and background to say, yes, I can. And, to quote him, yes, we can, or yes, I can, that yes, you can be and do anything that you aspire or put your mind or heart to do. You can believe it. Certainly, you can receive it.
Okay. So kind of tell us, give us some future dates of what you're going to be doing. Kind of walk us through what McMillan and Associates, what's next?
What's next for McMillan and Associates? I'm constantly thinking and strategizing, where do we go from here? And my passion always leads back to the community. And my next step, or a project that I'm working on, is to begin specifically targeting faith-based organizations where I will come in and actually offer our services to local congregations, along with small town congregations of which I am affiliated, to show them exactly how this thing can work to expand their territories. I mentioned to you earlier, we talked about in Deuteronomy of enlarging your territory. It starts with a simple concept or a simple plan. So that's what's on my plate next, is to go deeper into the community with the faith-based organizations, to offer our services, volunteer my services in local faith-based organizations to kind of get them started as well.
I think the benefit of her consulting experience, where she says the diversity, she's gone from the gamut of retail, aeronautics, airline industry, manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. And since we have the charge, like I said, Luke 19:13, to do business until he comes, I think sometimes in the faith-based community, we don't understand that we're supposed to dominate. So all the mountains of education, government, business, healthcare, et cetera, we are to dominate. And sometime in the faith-based community, we have a vision, but we need assistance in how to strategize that vision. And that's where McMillan and Associates is there to fill the gap. So that's why every time we have an expert on the TV show here, I want them to repeat over and over again how to get a hold of them. So once again, you can bring them into your faith-based organizations, church, synagogue, et cetera, to train and educate your members. And at minimum, as I always say, at least the staff.
Yes.
So the staff can take the education into your faith-based organizations, because sometime in these faith-based organizations, you have 12 to 15,000 members who you can touch, strategize, dominate an area. I know a lot of churches are buying real estate now. We still don't have a grocery store. I'm talking, I'm from Kansas City, and I've lived all the way in every state up and down the Mason-Dixon line. And I'm talking from a basketball player to a millionaire black person of church. We don't own any grocery stores. How much food does the black community buy?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have that. We don't have a hospital. Okay. We're getting into the hotel hospitality industry. For you young people, the world is wide for stuff that we have not touched upon, that other cultures are dominating. And with our faith-based community, since we understand within that organization how to pull our resources together, that we could dominate some of these areas to where we go from a welfare state, if you would, and yeah, I'm saying it, a welfare state, to we're supposed to be feeding the poor. And a lot of time in our churches, Emily, we are the poor. And that's not a representation of God and him coming to the cross and dying for us for abundant life. And in that, we also talk about we want to leave a legacy for our young people. We need to leave a legacy of some of the principles Emily talked about today, the strategies of volunteering, networking, how to network, how to talk to people, how to work a room. And that's a legacy we need to leave as well, so our children become independent thinkers and strategists. Emily, when you wake up in the morning, take a minute to think about it. Walk me through, which I find is so interesting, the first 60 seconds of your day.
That's easy, Cerise. My first 60 seconds of the day is to thank God for another day. And I take a moment to pause and to say a prayer. I also do my meditation. I do my reading early in the morning in the quiet hours, so that it can set the stage for my day. And sometimes I get up in a hurry and I'll run into the bathroom even before, and I'll come back and I'll start over, because I think that's critically important, to set the stage and to put life in order. And that's giving God the honor and the glory and the respect and the love that he deserves for allowing me an opportunity to see another day and to be able to touch another life. And then I can go on about my day, and it makes things go a little bit better. And I find myself, and I'm working on it, forever working on my faith of trying to continually throughout the day meditate on those things that mean the most, which is to glorify God.
Tell me one of your favorite verses.
Well, again, one of my favorite verses is the Deuteronomy 19:8, which it talks about enlarging one's territory. And it doesn't, the way I look at that as far as enlarging a territory, to me, means not enlarging a financial territory, but enlarging an opportunity to share the word of God, along with sharing what it is that he would have us to do. What is my purpose here? If I can help an individual identify through my services, as well as through my beliefs, my Christian beliefs and values, of how he or she can reach the goal, that makes my day. And even if I walk away with not $1 for my efforts, it still helps me to become, very satisfied in what I'm doing.
That's a great answer and a passionate answer. Your eyes light up when you talk about that. As we wrap up our show tonight, Emily, take 1 minute and kind of walk us through in conclusion. What is the one takeaway from your broadcast tonight that you want our Business Speaks audience to walk away with?
Absolutely. When creating a business plan, I would like for you to think very seriously about what it is that you will decide to do or identify as your community give back. It may be as simple as once a year we will go down and pack bags for our military personnel to send overseas, but put it in writing. You're more apt. I'm a list person, even though we have technology of cell phones and computers. I still take out my little pad and I jot down things that I want to accomplish for the day. So the biggest takeaway is, what can I do to complement my for-profit goals and earnings with what I can do to give back to the community, because they definitely complement each other. And I'm sure if you do that, you will find that your business will grow, and you will prosper, and you will help others to achieve those things in life that they so desire.
And in the giving back, I love the way she said, and expecting nothing in return.
Absolutely.
Emily, tell our listeners how to get a hold of you again.
Sure. I welcome any interest, feedback, or inquiries for our services at E.G. McMillan, and that's spelled McMillan at Comcast.net, or you can find me at Emily McMillan at LinkedIn.com.
Emily, it has been a pleasure to sit here for you for the past few minutes and talk about your passion for volunteering, which is a much needed topic, especially amongst our young people, and the networking piece. That information is invaluable. Our faith-based communities, you have a resource. You can't say you don't know. You have your Business Speaks binder where you've written her information down. She's talked about the wealth of background history that she has in the consulting business. So now you have a resource to bring it to your faith-based organization. As always, we always want to thank our sponsors. Tonight, our show was sponsored by Divine Order Restoration Ministries. Once again, I'll be speaking this weekend. I'm so excited at the Reefs of Joy Outreach Deliverance Ministry at 4862 Glenwood Road in Decatur, Georgia. It's an all-day seminar on Saturday. Let me tell you, it's going to be exciting. We're going to feed you. It's going to be for free. You're going to get a wealth of information about marketplace ministry and business. But always, let me leave some education for you. This summer, our kids will be out of school. They need to be engrossed in Black history. I want to provide a book for you, a referral, Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust by Dr. John Henrik Clarke. If you Google him, John Henrik Clarke, he will give you a wealth of information on African civilization and history. It's been a great show. I'm Cerise Hall. We'll see you next Thursday right here at Business Speaks at 6 o'clock p.m. It's been a pleasure. I'm your host, Cerise Hall, and you have been watching Business Speaks. Have a great night, family.